There's a type of person who cancels plans and feels relief, not guilt. Who recharges in silence while everyone else is out burning energy somewhere. Who genuinely doesn't need a room full of people to feel alive. And somewhere along the way, society decided that this person has a problem. They've been called cold, antisocial, afraid of intimacy, too in their own head. But what if none of that is true? What if being completely fine alone isn't a symptom of something broken? It's a different way of being human that most people don't understand. Including the people who have it? Today, we're breaking down the psychology of people who are genuinely okay being alone. Not lonely people who've given up. Not introverts hiding from life. Not people damaged by relationship failures. People who simply don't need what everyone else says you're supposed to need. Psychologists identify a trait called high autonomy, a strong internal drive to function independently without relying on social input for emotional regulation. In plain terms, their sense of self doesn't shift based on whether other people are around. Most people experience solitude as absence. Something is missing. There's a low-level hum of social hunger that only gets quiet when other people are near. People with high autonomy don't feel that hum. And this isn't numbness. It isn't emotional shutdown. Research shows these individuals score equally high on emotional range. They feel deeply. They just don't need an audience for it. Neuroscience offers a possible explanation. Studies on introversion and social reward processing suggest that some brains simply respond less strongly to the dopamine hit that social interaction provides. It's not that they dislike people. It's that people don't feel like a reward the way food or creativity or solitude itself does. The stimulation just lands differently. But here's where it gets complicated. Because our entire social structure is built on the assumption that connection is the point. That the goal is to be surrounded. That a full life looks like a full calendar. So when someone functions just as well, maybe better, in their own company, the world tends to pathologize it. They get asked if they're depressed, if something happened to them, if they're scared of getting close. And some of them start to wonder if the world is right. Here's what the research actually says. Solitude seekers show no higher rates of depression than social individuals when the solitude is chosen, not forced. The key word is chosen. There's a difference between isolation that comes from rejection and isolation that comes from preference. Between the person who can't connect and the person who simply doesn't need to. That distinction matters more than almost anything else in this space. And here's something that surprises most people. Individuals who genuinely thrive in solitude tend to have a higher capacity for deep, meaningful connection when they do choose to engage. Because they're selective, they don't dilute their attention across 100 relationships. When they let someone in, it counts. They form fewer connections but more complete ones. The kind where both people actually know each other, not the curated version, the real one. There's also a creativity link. Solitude is where ideas form, where perspective develops, where the noise of other people's expectations gets quiet enough to hear your own. Historically, some of the most original thinkers, writers, scientists, philosophers, structured their lives deliberately around large amounts of alone time. Not because they hated people, because that's where their best thinking lived. But here's the part that needs to be said. Not everyone who prefers being alone is thriving. Some people convince themselves they're fine when they're actually avoiding, using solitude as armor instead of as a genuine need. The difference is usually visible in how they feel about connection. Not indifferent to it, but afraid of it. Not choosing silence but running to it. If solitude leaves you peaceful, you're likely wired for it. If it leaves you relieved because you escaped something, there might be more to look at. The good news is both are workable. Neither needs a label. Neither needs to be fixed. What they both need is honesty about which one is actually happening. So if you've spent your life being told you're too quiet, too independent, too okay on your own, hear this. That's not a deficit, that's a design. The world will keep trying to hand you its version of a full life. You're allowed to hand it back and build your own. Subscribe if this hits somewhere honest. Every week we break down the psychology behind how people are actually wired, not how they're supposed to be. And if you want to go deeper, the next video is about people who feel everything too deeply. Click it. You might recognize someone you love.